full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP Morning Show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP. Hey, Gumpers.
Hey, hola, bon dia, alegria. Tudo bem? How are you today, my friend? Colin Munson here on the Expats Portugal Show. How are you? How are you? Let me know. I've got a subject I want to talk to you about. Well, the main subject, the main business of the day is the long-awaited vegan special with special guest Christy Morgan. Really looking forward to that. And Kathy's joining us from our community too at around 9 o'clock to talk about veggie and vegan. Well, mainly vegan because that's Christy's angle. But we might want to, as often happens with this conversation, mulge in talk of being a vegetarian as well as a vegan here in Portugal. And you'll see on the screen there, Christy Morgan is the blissful and fit chef who now lives in central Portugal. So we'll have a great conversation, a bit of fun, I suspect, from around 9 o'clock this morning. Between now and then, we're in that situation, aren't we? The founding influence, of course, of the Good Morning Portugal show was to keep you updated during the pandemic time. And I think we did a pretty good job of that, of being an English-speaking source of information of what you might do from day to day, as it was in the early days. And then, you know, we've grown into quite an incredible community, I would say, to what you see before you, in front of your eyes today. Not exactly this on the screen, but you know what I'm talking about. Our awesome community at Expats Portugal and the Gumpers and just everybody involved in their love, their shared love of Portugal, moving to Portugal, being in Portugal, and staying in touch as we unfold in our joy of living here in Portugal, helping people on the way to do that, and being with people in the community who are already doing that. And that's a really great basis for our community, obviously. And so, yeah, 2 years or so, or thereabouts, of sticking together in lockdown, and then we were freed. I mean, gambling like spring lambs in the Portuguese environment, landscape. And it seems that there's something else on the horizon. And I hesitate. Thank you, by the way, everybody, for your comments in the chat this morning. We'll get to all of those. Mrs. M is here. Mrs. M is here this morning. What's she doing here this morning? You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Suze is here as well. Was waiting for the show to begin at the beach. So great to see you, Suze, with a cuckoo from you. The slug is in. T-Duck. See you later, T-Duck. Coach Turner's in as well. Jess, I think I spotted as well this morning. Pam. And I know other people are joining us this morning because they're excited about the vegan special that we'll be doing with Christy Morgan from 9. But to come back to this this thing that's hanging in the air, and my aim to give you a balanced view of life. And you're thinking, Munson, you've got to be kidding. A balanced view of life? You must be kidding. Well, I think we managed to do it pretty well during the pandemic. Let me know if you think that was the case, with a balance of factual information, like what's going on, as Marvin Gaye would ask and assert. And actually, has to be said, isn't it? Not much has changed since he asked those questions and was prompted to ask them. But similarly, in the pandemic, we were looking at what was going on. We were reporting information. We were trying to keep you as safe as possible from as wide an angle and perspective as possible without coming down to firmly or squarely on any kind of political lines. And we'll continue to do that. By the way, as we move into what is called the cost of living crisis, I think we're moving into, it's like the next thing, isn't it, for us as human beings? And I think it has a special relevance and appropriateness for those migrating, because you're coming to a new country, which, like all countries around the world, will be facing this new situation that we seem to be going into, that's being heightened by the winter months. And I notice in the Portugal news this morning, and that's what I'd like to talk about in the first part, as well as to say hi to everybody, see how you're all doing, is to get a feel for the situation. So specifically, if I stop waffling quite so much and focus in a bit, as I'm endeavoring to articulate what it is I want to talk about and bring us together on, is a Portugal News article, Summer of Discontent in Portugal. Strike notices communicated to the Ministry of Labour increased from 79.5% from January to July compared to the same period of 2021, totaling 666, would you believe, there. Some people will see a significance in that as well. So a summer of discontent, a cost of living crisis. These seem to be familiar themes around the world. These may be themes in the countries that you're coming from. And I think it's only right that us as a community here keep reporting the information that's useful to you that might affect your lives. So that's what I'm fumbling for this morning. And I think we've always managed to steer quite a steady line through what we might call the reality check of what's going on in the world without becoming too depressed or obsessed by it. That's the balance I would like to continue to strike in this environment on the morning show, keeping you up to date with what's going on in the world, because there are some very significant things happening, are there not, in the world? And it will still be very possible to have a very contented summer, I suspect, here in Portugal. For example, yesterday we had a lovely day hanging out with friends, and then we topped that off with a dip in the sea. I couldn't have imagined a more beautiful day. There are other people who I would have liked to have been there, for example. There's always something, isn't there, for us human beings to mither about and worry about. But still, you know, for us living as a family in Portugal, it is fantastic, I have to say. And there are these things on the horizon. It has changed considerably since we first thought of moving here, and since we've been here. I mean, the pandemic obviously being and the whole reaction to the pandemic being a notable thing that we could have never foreseen, and that deeply affected our lives, and the economic consequences and the medical consequences thereof as we're coming out of it. And now this cost of living crisis and a sense of uncertainty in the world. I think it would be irresponsible to not acknowledge it in some way. But as I say, I want to keep the balance of not getting too obsessed by it. So I'd like to, you know, I do this from time to time, don't I? I fire a flare into the air, a flare of concern and interest in what you think about this, so that we might be able to manage it correctly as we have our daily get together here on the Expats Portugal Show in the morning from 8:30 till 10. We'll always talk to fascinating and interesting people, and we'll always have a bit of fun. And we have a context in which we live, and how should we report on that? How are you feeling about that? Do let me know in the chat. I hope that's made some sort of sense this morning. Before we get underway, saying hello to a few people, including Coach Turner, who they've had a nice little chat, haven't they? T-Duck's been in since, what, 6:24 this morning. Fantastic to see you yesterday, T-Duck. You're looking fantastic. A fine, cutting a dash, fine figure of a man. And Ian Turner giving you a quack this morning at around 7:15. Incredible. Nice morning routines. And that's part, I think, of growing old disgracefully, isn't it? Is having a morning routine that you recognize and gives you a sense of self and place in society, and establishes your day and sets it up exactly how you want it to be. So a God Squad tip of the day in that. Well, I don't know, Coach Turner, Ian, did you hear my concern yesterday that you sent us quite an interesting exercise to do, and I think you've got another one for us today, and it was a convoluted press up. And yes, who doesn't like a convoluted press up first thing in the morning? And you were talking about core strength. I was hoping we might get a video at some point, if it's not too much trouble, just to make sure that we don't have people tied up into some sort of origami style human ball of humanness and muscle and sinew that then needs to be taken to a chiropractor for unpacking. So that exercise you sent us yesterday, is there any chance of having a video of that to see how that works? And maybe even this one as well today, continuing the theme of core strength, on your hands and knees. Sounds like being at school again, doesn't it? On your hands and knees, and who doesn't? Yes. Put one hand forward, Superman style. Well, this is good, isn't it? You can start the day as a superhero, and the opposite leg backwards horizontally. Okay, so it's a bit of a stretch. It's a bit of a planky kind of thing, isn't it? And you alternate. So right hand forward and left leg backward as you're on your hands and knees. And let's hope maybe warn people in the house about what. Can you imagine if somebody walks in on that, especially mid change of arms and legs there, they'll think you're playing Twister. Like a kind of, a twister without the, it's like, like invisible frisbee, but like invisible twister. Put one hand forward, Superman style, and the opposite leg backwards horizontally, and alternate. Start slowly, says the coach Turner, as always. Steady as you go, and build up to doing 10 each side. Wow, it's relatively gentle exercise, but it's effective at strengthening the core muscles. If it hurts, stop, of course, and it does look a bit silly, though. Well, speak for yourself, Coach Turner. I think some of our gumpers here will look very fetching, and do feel free to send in photographs of you doing that exercise on 913-590-303. You might want to turn the sound down if there's an excessive amount of moaning and groaning, because we don't want to we don't want to confuse people, do we? But that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Coach Turner, for that. Excellent job. And a video wouldn't go amiss as well. Do you remember our wonderful set of videos that we've got for growing old disgracefully? Gentle fitness for bon viveurs. That one yesterday, would really appreciate a video on that. Oh, from Taxi and Sue's lurked a little on the last show. It was great yesterday, wasn't it, talking to Bob? And I was delighted to see comments coming in. More people than you might imagine are prepared to admit to having guides with interesting names, it turns out, who they're drawing upon for inspiration and guidance throughout the day. So it was really lovely for Bob and Karen to be with us yesterday and make the comments they made, which has elicited, is that the right word? Attracted, encouraged people to make comments on a similar sort of wavelength and vibe. Superb, and people very appreciative of Leona's new range of beautiful things to put on your skin. And to take care of yourself in a non-toxic way. I'm going to see her and the doc tomorrow at Pit Stop. I don't know if anyone else is around in the Silver Coast area and wants to meet up tomorrow night at the Pit Stop in San Martino de Porto, but she'll be there selling those wonderful things tomorrow at Pit Stop. Support a local business, you know, within the realms of the cost of living crisis, and how our plans might have to change, given that a lot of the background costs and expenses may well be going up. Need to stick together, don't we? Share hacks and tips, support each other. Not unlike, I think, how we came together during the pandemic time. I don't want to make too much of that, but I don't want to ignore it either. Lurked a little on the last show, says Suze, was too tired and missed points made, so watched replay, napped this evening away. So we'll see if you are still awake at the moment. Let's see if one of these might help. Whoa, what's going on? You're watching the Expats Portugal Show, Suze. How are you doing? How's it going over there? At soon after midnight. What are you, about half past? A quarter to one, where you are at the beach, Spanish Banks, Vancouver, looking across the water. You're camping at the North Shore Mountains. House delayed a week, still camping, but sick of camping. Hang on in there, Suze. You'll get there, and this is your view at the moment. Thank you very much for sending that in. It does look very twinkly and lovely, but I guess there is that moment, isn't there, when you've reached terminal camping velocity, as I'm describing it this morning for the very first time in human history, I think. Yeah, there comes a point, doesn't there? Okay, love the outdoors. This has been great fun, but it's not fun anymore. Now, for some people, that's the first half hour. Others can last a couple of weeks. But I think the time comes, doesn't it, when you really want to be washing parts of your body that have been inaccessible for a few days or weeks by virtue of the camping lifestyle or similar challenges. So thank you very much there on the Spanish Banks in Vancouver. Thank you very much, Suze. All the best to you. Lots of love to you and Taxi. And yeah, you napped the evening away. We'll see tonight for you. We'll see tonight what's going to happen. Another picture then, while we're in the picture deck. Look at that study. Do you remember yesterday? Well, it was only yesterday. I do hope you remember if you were here. It was only yesterday. Horses? Yes. Munson? Yes. Oh, yes. The Algarve Equestrian Show. And a lovely study there. Fantastic videos yesterday and a delightful still of a beautiful, beautiful horse there. Thank you very much, Victoria, for your continued contributions and service to the Gumper community here and sending in a beautiful picture there. A delight for anyone who loves horses. And the slug is in as well this morning. Oh, actually, so before we move on to chatting with the slug this morning, this was sent in by Andy in the Bairrada. Os vinhos da Bairrada there. I think he might have just picked that up. An encyclopedia of the wines of Portugal. That looks like a lot of fun, doesn't it? And that looks like one of those collectible and encyclopedia type sets, or encyclopedic type, that you would get from the newsagent, and you would religiously collect them and have to get the binders, and now they sit on the either in the attic or these are still found in many parental homes, aren't they? the cut out and keep, the binder clad collectibles that went on for weeks and weeks. They lured you in, didn't they, with the first one at a special offer, maybe with a free binder, and then you were hooked, and you had to spend several €1,000 collecting every magazine every week and binding it together. It was a little strip, wasn't there, that went through the staples of the magazine that held it in the binder. There you go. There's the Vinhos of the Bairrada region there. One of many regions that would have, I'm sure, been documented in that lovely collection. Did you pick that up at a car boot fair, or have you always had that? Has that always been in the family there, Andy? Thank you for sending that in. Thank you, everybody, for everything you send in. And I think we've got a few more this morning. Anna, good morning to you. Okay, Anna, I will get back to you on that. That's not a picture, that's an inquiry. However, we do have that lovely picture from you of Stockholm. I'm not sure where you are. Are you between Sweden and Njalgarv at the moment? Morning to you, Anna, as well. And Ruby, have a great time at the wedding that you're going to today. Lots of weddings and wedding anniversaries we're speaking about just at the moment. Okay, so Portuguese saying of the day from T-Duck this morning before we welcome, as we anticipate, our vegan lifestyle expert, Christy Morgan, and Kathy's coming along as well. Gumper Kathy is coming along to put in her input about living a vegetarian vegan lifestyle. We'll find out exactly which position she's covering in that regard at around 9 this morning. Let me know yourself if you are experimenting or have been a lifelong vegan. Actually, there can't be many people, can there, who can claim to be lifelong vegans unless their parents encourage them to be so from a very early age. But are you a vegetarian? Are you a vegan? How's it going being in Portugal? I've always made the assumption that it's actually quite difficult, but actually, vegans and vegetarians say no, it's not actually. Certainly, the produce is good, isn't it? Even if the more not complicated, sophisticated, even if the more sophisticated presentation of the food in restaurants isn't quite so common around the whole of the country. But we'll find out more about that from Christy around 9 o'clock this morning, and accompanied by Kathy, of course. So yeah, Portuguese saying of the day. Thank you, T-Duck, for this. Quem muito abarca, pouco abraça. He who embraces much embraces little. Oh, he who grasps at too much loses everything. I thought that was aimed at huggers, you know, people who, I mean, we do have the hugging debate. Are you a hugger? A bit like the vegan debate. Are you a vegetarian? Are you vegan? Are you a hugger? I have to say that I would associate the hugging more with vegetarians and vegans. Yeah, this is not about hugging people so much that you actually get too much of a good thing. Yes, if you grab at everything, you lose something, possibly, as would be another translation of this. Thank you very much for that Portuguese saying of the day. And to be followed, take one of these after breakfast. A deep thought of the day. Being popular on social media is being like rich in Monopoly. Ooh, ouch. Yee. Okay, yes, but fair enough. Being popular on social media is like being rich in Monopoly. Yeah, and you get to the point, don't you, where you're so rich in Monopoly or so ubiquitous on social media that you start upsetting people, and then somebody turns the board over. No, that can't happen in social media, can it? Although I did see Twitter was down the other evening, a couple of nights ago. Who'd have thought it? This is a new part of the evolution of social media, isn't it? There are outages on these great platforms, and of course, the continued controversy about whether old Muskie will buy. Whether he'll buy the platform or not, or has got himself into a lot of trouble with his threats to buy it. It's turned into another wedge issue, has it not? Really? What are we like? Dad jokes then. Okay, let's have a few dad jokes this morning. Very good. Thank you, T-Duck. Portuguese saying, deep thought of the day. And now, what a smattering, a light sniggering, if you're lucky, that is, of dad jokes. Pizza jokes are all about the delivery. See what I did there? And the timing. Thank you very much. Pizza jokes are all about the delivery. A flock of doves decided to stage a coup. Oh, my word. And a warning here, not just a warning for the dad jokes, but a warning generally. Orchestral music is inappropriate for children, apparently, because it has too much sax and violins. More reluctantly. Who doesn't like sax and violins? Well, yes, sax, yes. Maybe, T-Duck. Thank you very much for those. See you later, buddy. And, or perhaps you stage a coup against a coup. What is going on here now? So does a cuckoo stage 2 What? And how would you one spell cuckoo in Portuguese? Cuckoo, cuckoo. Oh, never mind. I guessed it right the first time. Cuckoo there. Or cuckoo. Haha, the French spelling. What? This is, I think this is a mixture, is it not, of idle speculation and sleep deprivation here, with Suze and the slug talking and T-Duck chipping in as well. I don't think a walkabout in my mind would be a pleasant experience for most. Is it a service you're even offering, James? I mean, we do get a dose of it, don't we, on a Monday morning? Thoughts from the Redwoods, of course, with James. And yes, every Monday morning, as a preamble, bit of foreplay before Migration Monday. Coucou in French is hello, a casual way of saying it. Oh, thank you, Suze, for that. Learn something every day. Learn several things usually, do we not, on the show here in the mornings. Right now, I'm thinking about Cocoa Puffs. What? Deagle's in as well. Bon dia, Carl. Thanks for your messages, Deagle. Bon dia, Carl and Gumpers from Blue Sky, Belfast. Last day of August. Most children going to school. What, already? Nice 8. They're back at school in August. That doesn't sound right, does it? I'm sure they're not happy about that. Nice 18-degree day today. Looks like rain Friday and Saturday for this week. Okay, interesting, Deagle. Have a very good day to you, bon dia, my friend. And this is, yeah, exactly. Carl, see what happens when you let us in early. Yeah, I do. I really do. We're a regular riot, says James there. One might even say a proper riot. And the only kind of rioting that we really approve of. Some of you are too perky in the morning. Oh, who doesn't like it perky in the morning? Do tell, where can I get the coffee that you're... Can you believe it, Suze? And I think you know this. James is actually... a decaffeinated coffee drinker. And can you imagine what he'd be like if he actually had caffeine, a couple of shots of espressos? Oh, Buddy's here, everybody. Bon dia, Gria. It's been a while, Buddy. How are you? How's it going? Wherever you are right now. You live but once. More profound thoughts this morning. I think this is Coco Chanel rather than Coco Chanel. You live but once. You might as well be amusing, or give it a good go, right? Give it a good go. Aforementioned Barhandi, Andy in the Bayrada. Bon dia from the beautiful Bayrada. I've posted some more great events activities for September in the event section. Don't forget to log in to see them. So yeah, log in, be a member, and log in and check out those events. Thank you so much, Andy, for your contributions on the events section of the Expats Portugal website. Really appreciate it. Give us a taster though, mate. I mean, we are working our way towards the blessing of the helmets, are we not? Perhaps that is the climax of your event posting, I wonder. In proper English, Thunderduck, you're an irregular Gumper. I'd hate to see an irregular riot. Yes, messy, I suspect. Bon dia from Jess, how you doing? And morning all, Mrs. M is asking how everyone is doing as well this morning. Pam's in too. How was your meetup? How was your international meetup, Pam? How's that going? Do let us know more about that for those folks in the Alcobaça area, about the meetup that you arrange over there. Hi, Suze. Hope you're doing well back in Canada from Baddy. And thank you for your welcome. I think that's to me. Hey, Suze, T-Duck, Baddy, and all from Mrs. M. Look, I had a summer of discount tent. Yeah, there was a nice... I set that up for you there, I think, didn't I? Set that up beautifully, and you just knocked it out the park there. A summer of discount tent where you managed to get a camping bargain. Yes, Suze, we brought a few themes together this morning. Very nicely done. It's as though we planned it. Planning what? Much better, muito melhor. Today, starting yesterday, I'm clearly on the other side of it now. Obrigado. Yes, good to hear that you're feeling better there, James. And bon dia from Stephen Wells too. Stephen Wells as well. And after school, you take a dip in a pool. Yes, we did. The great big pool that is San Martino de Porto Bay. And it was choppier than usual. It never feels perilous, I have to say, in the bay, and that's what's so lovely about it. But it was the sand gradient had changed, and there's so much. They are continuing to harvest seaweed, and we saw the magnificent fields of seaweed drying as we drove home. And they're pulling so much seaweed out of the water, but the seaweed is just washing up anyway on the beach. Or maybe because they're churning it up, it's washing up on the beach. I don't know. But it's certainly, there was a lot more stuff in the water, some terrifying looking things. At one point, I thought I saw Yoda sat, gripping the seabed and maybe dishing out a little bit of wisdom. But I thought I saw Yoda sat underneath the waterline and had a lovely swim. But I was a little bit careful because there were more things than usual floating about in the water. Kids enjoying throwing things that they found in the water at each other. No, not like when we were kids. Not those things that you used to find in the water. and maybe run along the beach with on the end of a stick. No, mostly natural things. A few bits of plastic that might well be in there for a few more million years. But yeah, more stuff in the water yesterday. This is an interesting time in the bay at San Martino de Porto, and it was lovely. Content is great. I prefer joyful. I choose it whenever I wake up and remember. Yeah. Nice one, James. And Sarah's in. Bon dia, Gumpers. How are you? Sarah this morning. Smash, 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 smash. That like bouton. Is that Canadian French possibly there? Vegan, why limit what you eat? Well, you can ask that question of Christy when she joined us after 9. We knew, didn't we? And all vegans have to, well, they don't have to put up with it, but this does seem to be an effect of bringing veganism into the conversation, is that I was looking at the 4 agreements. One of them is to not take things personally, and that's what I would urge any meat eaters to do this morning. There is somebody coming on around 9 o'clock to talk about veganism and being a vegan and enjoying the vegan lifestyle and being fit as well as blissful around veganism. You don't have to take it personally. Just because they don't eat meat doesn't say anything about you eating meat or not eating meat either. Okay, are you with me? You know this does happen, doesn't it? I'm thinking of the Jeremy Clarksons of the world who tend to take everything personally. Anyone who's different to them. They take it as a bit of an affront and feel the need to be maybe a little bit of offensive / defensive about other people's lifestyle choices. Let's see how that goes this morning. Kudos to those diligently learning Portuguese, but it seems some expats manage quite well year after year with limited language skills. Who are you talking about, Suze? I wonder. Not taking things personally, I'm not going to. We had a great meetup. Oh, excellent. In Alcobaça yesterday. In the Green Park, it's fantastic. I know what those pipes are for in the children's play area. Pam, did you know what they were for and how to make them work? The first month back has been a success. Oh, that's excellent. Very good. And a terrific, Pam. Yeah, how many were there yesterday? Oh, a Deagle's sneaking in a dad joke as well. Some crocodiles can grow up to 15 feet, but most only have 4. Oh, yes, so much material. There will be lurkers here, won't there, who are just here for the dad jokes, waiting for the right moment to release them on unsuspecting, and it's probably not the only thing they release on the unsuspecting crowd in the back of the car, if dads are the same all over the world, and mums occasionally as well. But there is a difference, if you know what I'm talking about. But yes, if you're a dad joke researcher, you've come to the right place. Nice one, Deagle. Cindy Beeson as well. Great to see you too as well, Cindy. Bon dia, Greer Gumpers. And verdad, says James, about this comment about expats not learning the language. It's all about choices we make. My choice is to eventually speak the language of the country in which I live. Well done, sir. Very good, James. That's for you. Morning all from Nigel. I've got to say, Nigel, I do like the pictures that you post up of your food. And it's not vegan. It's been around 30 people each week. Very good. New people every time. Good mix. There you go. So the Alcobaça International Meetup. Nice one, Pam. And when Suze comes back, that is on her list. Fantastic. Victoria's in as well. We showed the lovely picture of the still study of the beautiful Portuguese horse. There it is. Thank you. Hola, bon dia, kids from beautiful sunny Portimao. Thank you very much, Victoria, for being here. Christy's just getting ready to join us in the green room, appropriately called green room this morning. You would be surprised, she says. Texas has come a long way. Okay. It makes it sound like Texas has come a long way, doesn't it? Towed over and just parked on the outskirts of Portugal. We'll find out what she means about that in just a moment. Let's just say a few more hellos. Oh, I see, that was related to this context, everybody. It's far easier to be vegan in Portugal than in Texas. Oh, okay, and Texas has come a long way on that basis. Thank you for tuning in before you were even here, Christy. I've been vegetarian since I was 17. Can't imagine eating meat now, 35 years on. Yet I'm sure that's exactly what happens for many people. Seriously, thinking that way, Slug. Need to find the coldest area. Can't take the heat, makes me sleepy. So maybe it's gonna be Ponta Lima for you ultimately, Suze. And the wine book was in Espaço Bairrada in Korea, where the wine harvest events are starting. Oh, I see, not your book, somebody else's there. A few more quick hellos then, because we want to bring Christy onto the screen. I think Kathy will be ambling in at some point as well, with a locally sourced, organic, free trade, some sort of mocha frappuccino or something like that. If I know Kathy. T-Duck says, I've been mostly vegan for over 30 years. My problem is slipping back into using too much oil and salt. I think we're going to be talking to the ideal guest about that and workarounds and how to manage that, T-Duck. And a quick good morning, people, then from Lee McGrady and Francis. Bon dia, a todos. Made it. Slow morning. Happy hump day, everybody. Yeah, it is, of course, Ask Anything About Portugal Wednesday. Anything you want to ask about Portuguese life of this wonderful group of people here. And of course, our very special guest who we'll bring onto the screen now, Christy Morgan. If anything you want to ask about veganism and the vegan lifestyle in Portugal, here she is. Good morning to you, Christy.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And so great that you find yourself in central Portugal. Whereabouts are you in Portugal?
I'm near Caldas da Rainha. I'm in Nadadouro by Foz.
Oh, we're pretty much neighbours. When I heard central Portugal, of course we're in central Portugal, aren't we, in terms of latitude? I thought, maybe you're over Castelo Branco way. So that's amazing. So Caldas is where you've chosen to settle, at least for the time being.
Yeah, I really love it here.
Could you, well, before we get into the whole matter of veganism and vegetarianism in Portugal and how to adjust or expand or continue the lifestyles that people had before coming here, because I think that's a big consideration. People do have concerns about moving to Portugal and whether they will be able to live in a similar way with their dietary choices. Before we do all of that, can you tell us a little bit about your journey here as a foreigner coming into Portugal?
Sure.
Why Portugal?
Well, why not? It's one of the most beautiful countries. Ideal weather, inexpensive. People are so lovely. Even the foreigners are mostly lovely. And I just
yes, nicely put.
So yeah, I was actually in Berlin for 1.5 years, and before I came here, I'm American, if you can't tell.
Really?
From Texas.
Okay.
And when people ask me, "Oh, why did you leave?" I'm like, "Do you watch the news?" Like, as an aging person, it's really not a great place to be. So yeah, I moved to Berlin, and it was so cold and dark there for most of the year. I was like, I need to get out of here. So Portugal was on my radar. I had some vegan friends that already lived here. And I came and did a 3-week road trip around the country and just fell in love, as most people do when they come visit.
Yes, indeed. Well, that's fantastic. Where did you go, if I may ask? What was your scouting trip like?
The first one was, I actually did 2 before I moved here because I was in Berlin, so it was super easy to just come over. The first one was kind of was like north to Lisbon. And then I wanted to buy a property, and in central Portugal, more inland from here, it was really cheap at the time. So then my second trip was more focused on the Silver Coast and the central region. And I did live in the central region the first 1.5 years during the pandemic. And I decided it was not for me. So I was happy to get out of there.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. And in my mind, and I think we'll be maybe challenging a lot of stereotypes and prejudices and ideas that we bring to conversations this morning. In my mind, I have Berlin, and I can completely appreciate what you're saying. Perhaps a little bit too dark and cold for too much of the year, but exceptionally trendy. A great place and fashionable place to be, and that's why people love it. I think for many people that more than makes up for the weather. And I would imagine on every street you could find a hipster vegan cafe and satisfy all of your vegan and vegetarian requirements. And in the same way, I'm thinking that's not the case. It might be a little bit like that in some parts of Lisbon and Porto, but that's not your general experience here in Portugal, is it? So was that a shock, that adjustment?
Indeed. Yeah, it was, especially living in central Portugal, because they're really behind, and they're like, there wasn't even a vegan restaurant at all. At least in Caldas, we actually have a vegan restaurant, Bottolini. It's so delicious.
Yeah.
But where I was living before, there was nothing. So we were in a pandemic, so I was mostly cooking at home anyway. But I love to go out to eat, and I love to try new foods. And Lisbon and Porto are especially vegan friendly, as in every country. Like the bigger cities, of course, have more options. But once you leave those cities, there's definitely less options for sure.
Yeah. Okay. But you're here to do something about that, aren't you? I think so. Please tell us about yourself. This is not a recent thing for you, is it? I mean, I think the ground or the tide is rising and raising everybody when it comes to vegan and vegetarian awareness. But you've been doing this for a long time. Tell us about yourself, if you will, and how you've moved or expanded the whole idea of assisting people who are interested in vegetarianism and veganism into bringing into the fitness into it as well. So how did that all come about? Tell us about yourself and your backstory, if you will.
So I went vegan right out of college when I was maybe 22, and I was young and healthy, so I didn't need to do it for health. A lot of people do it for health, and that's perfectly fine. Whatever gets you there, I'm happy. But I did it because of the animal cruelty. And I didn't grow up cooking. Like, cooking is a complete lost art in the United States. It's probably like that in Britain as well. Like, I didn't know how to cook at all. And when I went vegan at the time, 20 years ago, there wasn't vegan restaurants on every corner, you know? So I had to fend for myself and I had to learn how to cook. And I actually went to culinary school, to a natural foods culinary school, so I could learn how to survive, basically.
Useful, yes.
So that sparked my interest in cooking, and I wanted to help others be able to cook for themselves. So then I started teaching cooking classes, and I did that for, 15-ish years. And I love sharing food, like the way to people's heart is through their stomach, like cooking. And, it's just, in the United States, it's so not important anymore. Like, we don't sit down with our families. And here it is very traditional to do that. You always sit down with your family here, the Portuguese at least. And yeah, it's nice to expose people. It's not just brown rice, like, it's not just salad, vegan food has come so far,
Isn't it just? Yeah, it really has. And you have as well, by the sound of it. So you taught yourself to cook out of, survival by the sound of it. And that's basic survival need turned into an absolute pleasure for you by the sound of it as well. And has become what your life is about, which is fun. That sounds like a lovely thing. You sounds like you do what you love, and you are sharing this message all over the world. I think you're quite an experienced traveler. Did you say on your website you've been to over 50 countries in the world now?
Yes, 57 now.
57, wow.
I took 2.5 years off to travel the world when I was like 37 or something, because it didn't make sense to me to wait till I was retired. Yeah. I was like, I should go travel now while I'm still able-bodied and, can do it. So yeah, 2.5 years I traveled all over the world. So I turned my blog kind of into a travel blog at that point and started, sharing vegan food all over the world, and it wasn't hard at all. Like, there was only maybe 1 or 2 places in South America where I was struggling through Peru on a bus, like there was a few instances where it was like, but in general, it's super easy.
Well, okay. So that I mean, for me, I need to let that go, don't I? I do have this. I think it might have been informed by other people's opinions as well, though. I mean, people do complain, don't they? You can't get any vegetarian, let alone vegan. You can't even get decent vegetarian food around the place. What's going on there? What is that breakdown? Is that old news, and is it not the case anymore? Or are they being a bit sort of limited in their imagination and buying choices? What's happening with that?
Yeah, I think there is a preconceived notion of veganism and that it is challenging. And it's definitely challenging in Portugal. Like, I'm really lucky. I have maybe a list of 10 places that I like to go to in the Silver Coast region. And plenty of choices, and it's all really delicious. And in Lisbon, did you know that Lisbon has the most vegan restaurants per capita in the world?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, like per, population density.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, but like I said, once you leave the big cities, it does become more challenging, and it can be frustrating. Like, I always make sure I have snacks, on me at all times, like in the car, in the purse, like I always have some snacks just in case.
Yes.
But but even the grocery stores are just full of vegan stuff. Like, it's crazy how many vegan products you can get. And of course, fruits and vegetables are delicious here. I get all my veggies and fruit from the farmers market in Caldish. So
okay, so that's part, I think, of what we'll talk about this morning. For anyone interested in making a transition or dipping a toe into this area, I suppose the shift is away from just wanting to be served and having it there as you want it each time you sit down for a meal. We're not just talking about changing what you eat each time you sit down for a meal in that sort of semi-industrialized way. We're talking about changing the way you think and probably how you live a little bit as well, are we not? And that must be a good thing as well, I would also add.
Well, you know, it's been 20 years and I'm doing okay. I'm not dead yet, which is what I like to say.
Evidently. Okay.
Like people are just shocked. They're like, whoa, 20 years. Wow.
That's the sort of thing I'm talking about. Like, yeah. I mean, that is so weird, isn't it? It's like, how have you survived? How have you survived being a vegan for 20 years? But it isn't just a matter, is it, of like going into a restaurant and looking for the vegan option. You've done more than, you've obviously done more than that. And I think it's fair to say you've inspired hundreds, if not thousands of people around the world to do the same thing. So maybe that's a place to start this morning for people who, sorry, yeah, go on.
I just want to say, like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to get out the chef and be like, hey, I don't eat this, this, and this. You know, what can you do for me? Like, don't just look at the menu and go, oh, I'm going to eat French fries today. You know, like, you can even call ahead of time. I try to just go to restaurants where I know I can get food, but for people who don't have that luxury, don't be afraid to speak up. Like, honestly, these chefs are making the same food over and over and over again. Like, they're excited and happy to do something different. And they all have vegetables. They probably have some beans back there, you know, like, they can come up with something for you. So don't suffer in silence. like, you know, speak up.
That's really, I would never have thought to do that, but that's probably out of being British, to be to apologize for. It's another thing to apologize. Not only am I sorry about being British, I'm sorry about being vegetarian and vegan as well now, and maybe a little bit different for Americans. And I love that idea of maybe beginning to talk the same language as the chef, of creativity. And that had never occurred to me, that they're like out in the back in the kitchen thinking, you know, I'm doing this same stuff over and over again. Wouldn't it be great to be able to try something a little bit different and meet somebody's particular needs? So you see no problem with that. And that's, in your experience, a thing that happens in Portugal. You'll need a bit of the language, though, presumably, to do that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you want to learn the basics of what you don't eat.
Yes.
But it's just like people who have allergies, they wouldn't suffer. They wouldn't not say anything. Like it's people are hip to gluten-free now. You know, people understand these things. It's not that big of a deal.
Yes.
But I do get frustrated here, and like in Lisbon, you wouldn't have this experience. But I can't even go places and get toast because they don't have margarine. They only have butter. Yeah. And little things that restaurants could be doing to be more inclusive. So I am actually going to take my time and make like a packet, like a PDF that says, here's what vegan means, and here's some swaps, and you know, here's some easy things you can offer on your menu to be more inclusive, because that's the goal, like, to be inclusive, because everybody can eat the vegan options. There's no reason for restaurants not to have vegan options already on the menu, because everybody can eat them. It's not like only vegans are going to eat them. Like, omnivores are going to eat those things too.
Yeah, and on the best of days, I think, as you were describing there with Botelli in Caldish that I've been to, or Bottolini, is it called? But yeah, the vegan restaurant there anyway. Part of the joy of it is maybe to switch this. Another sort of prejudice is to switch from, this is going to mean me missing out, to this might mean me trying something I've never tried before in my life and actually enjoying it. That's almost at a 180-degree switch, and I think you're involved in that. Education of people and that cultural shift. Before we go into more sort of practical hacks, life tips, and so on for people, when did the fit part come in? So you've been vegan for over 20 years, you say. It's a lifelong and global investigation and adventure that you've been having. but at some point you saw the need to bring in physical fitness as well as what you're actually eating. So what was that about, and when did that happen?
Probably, well, firstly around 30, I was like, oh, I kind of had a midlife crisis, and I was like, maybe I should exercise and make sure I get healthy as I get older. So I did a triathlon and I started getting into fitness a little bit. And then I started dating a bodybuilder and I turned him vegan, which was awesome. And and he got me into fitness. And so I started bodybuilding and lifting weights and just doing all kinds of things. And it just empowered me so much as a female to be strong and healthy. And it just took my health to a whole nother place, right? And then, I realized that women are often scared to lift weights and get in the gym. And it's just like gym bros, so yeah, I started, and I had been doing yoga actually since college. So I was like an early adapter of all the weird things. Like I started doing yoga 24 years ago. I went vegan. So I'd always done yoga, but never any kind of other fitness. So I realized at that time, sort of what I call like the health trifecta, mind, body, yoga, fitness, food. Like that is really the key to well-being. So
no, I think you're absolutely right. And because you can focus too much on one of those things and neglect one of the others, and that could actually end up being injurious. I think that again is another one of the stereotypes we might challenge, and that does sometimes happen, doesn't it? If it's all sort of ideological and not necessarily spiritual, that can be quite an imbalance for people and can produce some of the stereotypes that people use to not choose that lifestyle choice. So that's brilliant. How do you, but incidentally then, how do you persuade a bodybuilder to become vegan?
Well, you just show them that it's possible and that it's healthier. And when they actually start to try it, like you literally change on a cellular level and you feel it, your digestion improves, your skin improves, like your energy improves. So it's not really a hard sell once you know how to do it right. Like you definitely have to pay attention. But to be honest, like a lot of omnivores are missing a lot of vitamins and minerals. Even my father, he was anemic and had been eating meat his whole life. Like you're missing a lot of fiber when you don't eat that. When you eat too much meat, you're missing out on the fiber that you need to stay healthy. So, it's as long as you have a well-balanced diet. I try to eat all the colors of the rainbow. I make sure I have protein and whole carbohydrates. I try to stay away from junk food and I didn't drink before I moved here, but the wine here is so good. So
that's an excellent admission. Thank you very much for that. I'll ask you a bit more about that.
I'm all about the balance. I'm all about balance. Like life is short.
No, absolutely right. And that that is a message we constantly put out here, that balance is the important thing rather than being too extreme in any one way or another. And I think people here will like the idea of dating bodybuilders as well. So we might get some more tips from you on that as we talk further. I thought Kathy might be joining us this morning. She might have thought she's joining us and watching. If you are a vegetarian, vegan, and you would like to join us on screen and ask a question, or at the very least, put your question in the chat, do so, please. Let's see what people are saying this morning, shall we? Christy, go on.
How do I see the chat? Because I'm looking at the screen now, but I'm not seeing the chat from the YouTube.
Oh, well, I will read it out for you. Normally, in some views of the chat, or some views of the live stream, when my guests join me, they can usually see the question.
I found it. It was
Okay, well, that's great. You'll be able to see what
if anybody has any questions at all, feel free to.
Yeah, let's see, because there was that Texan issue, wasn't there? Blissful and Vic, Christy. I lived in Texas for a long time. Most vegan restaurants serve slimy, oily, salty substitute food. Okay, so let's do a little bit more prejudice and stereotype bashing here and decoding. This can happen, and I know there's a dietary or lifestyle approach now where people are not taking on oils, right? Oils are being rejected from the diet. And it was a funny word, which I can't remember now. But what would you suggest here? How Portuguese food can be a bit salty, and it's certainly a bit oily. What to do in this situation?
It's interesting because as a traveler and having eating vegan food all over the world, I find the vegan food in Portugal to actually be very healthy. Like sometimes it's too healthy. Like I'm like, I want a burger. Like give me a burger and French fries. Like sometimes, because there's a lot of macrobiotic influence here, and just in general, the food is healthier, I guess.
Yes.
So if you eat out here, you don't really have much of that kind of problem. But what you're addressing is, there's a group that are plant-based that try not to eat oil and salt and sugar.
Yes.
And while that can be healthy for a lot of people, having no fat in your diet is not a good idea. Like vitamins are fat soluble. We need to have some kind of fat in our diets. So being extreme, I find not healthy. I've tried it all in my 20 years. I did raw, I did fruitarian, I did no oil, no salt. I did it all. I tried it all. So I find that the middle way is the way. Balance. Obviously you don't want to eat burgers and fries every day. So, you find that balance.
Okay. All right. So that would be your overwhelming message then, or overriding message, is to be balanced, rather than try and rule these things out that you might have read an article about. Oh, oil is bad for you. I'll just stop eating any oils in that case. All right, for example. Okay, that's great. This is a slight tangent. I want to know the name of the town Vitor mentions. He said it had it all. Rural beach. This is what so many people are looking for. A rural beach, amenities and more. I think it was west of Ponte Lima and 5 minutes to the airport. I think that's what a lot of people want as well. Not sure. Somebody else might be able to help with that, Suze. But you won't go far wrong in Ponte Lima. And T-Duck has been mostly vegan for over 30 years. My problem is slipping back into using too much oil and salt. I think we dealt with that this morning. Morning, Lee. Morning, Francis. And we saw a lot of seaweed in Peniche. Now, seaweed. It's many recognized health benefits, topical and to eat and ingest. I noticed, Christy, that not much, despite us having an Atlantic coast and being one of the biggest consumers of fish in Europe, not many people seem to eat seaweed in Portugal. Am I wrong, or is there an area of discovery for us to make there?
Well, those of us in the vegan world, we do eat seaweed, but it's definitely not a common thing in Portugal for sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'd like to see more of that. Where I live, they harvest a particular kind of seaweed at this time of year, which has medicinal properties. They make an agar, which it's a gelling agent, isn't it? I think
yes.
agar, and the seaweed from here will be used for that, both medicinally and I think nutritionally, which is a good thing. And yes, vegans will of course need a gelling agent from time to time and need to get away from gelatin. I'm a vegan for health reasons. I'm terribly allergic to dairy and want to live a few more years. That's not a bad, it's not an unfair request, is it, to want to live a few more years? And you did mention allergies before, didn't you? Do you find that often the two go together, that people are making a switch to veganism because of their allergies that they might have?
I mean, sometimes I find it kind of odd, actually, when people have a dairy allergy, so they just drink lactose-free milk instead of a plant-based milk. Like, that seems funny to me. Like some people really can't get over this idea that we don't need milk after infancy and that we're the only species that drinks the milk of another species. Yes. It's like, it's kind of the most illogical thing we do as a species, actually, is to drink milk as adults. And, but I was going to address, somebody left a comment. I wanted to make sure I answer people's questions. Somebody asked for a minimalist vegan food menu. Okay. So if you might, who
was that? Who asked that question?
At 9:19.
Okay.
So basically what I do is I imagine my plate in 4 sections. Half of it is vegetables, a quarter is plant protein, and a quarter is carbohydrates, like brown rice, quinoa, even white rice, or something like that. So that's as simple as it gets, and then you can put a nice sauce on top, like a lemon tahini dressing or something like this. Nice. But also I've become super minimalistic in my cooking since the pandemic. Like, I used to make really elaborate things, but when the pandemic came and I was just at home cooking all my meals, I really got into one pot meals, like curries Indian curries, Thai curries, just big pots of soup with lentils and vegetables, and just throwing it all in one pot.
Mm. Okay, excellent. So and you'll be publishing these things on your website. I've put the link to your website up. So, but you share resources, don't you? And what was the answer to the question? It was about a minimalist vegan template. Is this in terms of recipes, do you think?
Well, just to keep it, I use the KISS principle, keep it simple, you know, like you don't even need to follow a recipe. You can just do this. But
and perhaps people are overthinking it. This is another problem, isn't it? It's people are overthinking it, and it's getting too complicated. And actually, no, put all of that, put the spiralizer in the bin for the minute or the back of the cupboard. Let's keep it simple, because if it gets too complicated, it'll put people off, won't it?
Yes, this is what I have found in my years of teaching and education. Like, people will get out a fancy cookbook and they'll try to make 3 things in one night from a cookbook or something. And it's like, no. Keep it simple, pick one recipe, and then keep the other elements on the plate simple.
Yes.
So that, like, and also I try to remind people that recipes are just, you know, a guide.
Yeah.
You don't just make a recipe and then serve it. You need to try it, because everybody's taste buds are different. So
yes.
you might want more sweet or more salt or more sour. So when you make a recipe from a cookbook, always try it and then adjust it to your personal taste.
Yes, well said. I'm all for simplicity, and that is certainly a great match here in Portugal, isn't it? With the wealth of produce that you can buy, and the freshness and the sweetness of the produce here, and the tastiness of the produce here. I think that fits in perfectly with this idea of simplicity. On that note of simplicity, and you mentioned plant milks, Mrs. M, my wife, and occasional vegan. She drives I suppose, the more experimental agenda in the household here when it comes to trying new lifestyle choices, which probably isn't uncommon. But the other day, I was going about my business buying the plant milk, because our kids prefer plant milk. And I think this is often the way, isn't it? If you're not completely just conditioned into drinking milk over a lifetime, actually the taste of dairy milk is a bit weird. I find that, and I just have it in tea because it's a customer condition. But I can't bear the stuff in its you know, as a glass of milk, in the way that people drink it. So we have plant milk in the house. The kids like plant milk. But what Mrs. M was saying, these products aren't simple, and I'd really welcome your view on this. A lot of vegan marketing that's going on is making terribly complicated and possibly harmful foods, because they are mixing in all sorts of emulsifiers and trying to make it taste better or sweeter or saltier. What's your view on those things? You know, but buying plant milks as an example, do you, with your message of simplicity, do you shy away from those heavily marketed and crafted vegan things that are going into the supermarket at an increasing level?
Like I said, I'm all for balance and moderation. So obviously you don't want your diet to be mostly processed and packaged foods. You want it to be as whole food as possible. But I definitely dabble and enjoy a vegan chicken nugget, a vegan burger. Like, I grew up eating those foods. So when I went vegan, I didn't stop wanting to eat those foods. You know, like, it's nostalgic for me to have chicken nuggets. So I do eat them. I don't eat them every day, but I do eat them because it's fun. And like the chorizo, like, it's great for Portuguese especially to have these other options, because even though they may be processed, they're still healthier than the alternative, than the meat. And so.
Yeah, I think this is a sentiment that's chiming in here with this. Life without bacon sounds like hell. It's one of the great weaknesses for people, isn't it, in their ideas of ever becoming vegan. What do you mean by that, though? That the processed vegan foods might be safer than the processed sausage, for example?
Sorry, what was that? I was reading the
comments. What do you mean by that? That a processed vegan item might be safer or better for you than a sausage or a chorizo, for example?
Because they're just made with, you know, mostly plant ingredients. It's not like full of antibiotics and
yes, all right.
You know, like,
and some of the less attractive parts.
And mainly an animal didn't have to die for it, you know. So It's a good.
I thought you were alluding to something that might be especially insidious or horrific in a sausage, which of course is occasionally the case.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, then the point you're making there, it seems, is the processing. You want to steer clear of processed food, but obviously from time to time, as you say, you keep it balanced and have those things. But would your advice be to not necessarily, if you're becoming vegan, go to that new part of the supermarket where there seem to be all these heavily marketed and over created sort of creations that are aimed at the vegan market? What's your view on that? I mean, on the one hand, it must be a good thing in terms of education, but you don't want to be eating that stuff all the time, right?
Yeah, like I said, moderation. Try them. I think it's fun to try them. Most of them, some of them I don't even like. Like, it's not my flavor profile. So, you know, I think it's fun to experiment, and it's better to try something plant-based for sure.
Right. Excellent. France is in Cape Town this morning, vegan for 2.5 years, more for health and giving it a go. Not good at preparing good meals. You might be able to help here. So had vitamin K deficiency. And I guess because it got complicated, I stopped. Do you see this then? People switching to vegan and then in some way undermining their health because they haven't got the right cooking skills or aren't buying the right ingredients?
I mean, it happens, of course. But from my 20 years of being vegan and being surrounded by vegans and vegan people, like, if you're doing it right, if you're getting, I mean, of course, everybody should use supplement. Like I said, omnivores have poor health and poor vitamin like D and B12 and can be anemic. So, you know, in general, people are not eating enough healthy foods. So we can all, you know, benefit from probably a multivitamin. And there's a few things that maybe aren't in the vegan diet, like B12. Vitamin D deficiency is pretty common because maybe not Portugal, but other places, Britain, for instance.
Yes.
You know, if you're not spending any time outdoors, that can be helpful. But yeah, it's not too much of a concern. You go get your blood work done. I actually just had my blood work done, and everything was perfect and in range without me even really trying. You know, so.
Okay. Well, what does that mean, getting your blood work done? Is this what you would recommend to people, to have their blood analysis to see where they do have their deficiencies? How easy is that to do in Portugal? And is that part of the mainstream health system?
Yeah, it can be, but okay. You can go privately to go get it done as well.
Okay. And then you will be able to monitor what's going on and see what you need to adjust. What would you say for vitamin K deficiency? Is that something you've heard about before?
I haven't actually.
Right. Okay. Tell us more about that, Francis. Pam's saying, I agree that some meat eaters get defensive. This is a thing, isn't it? I agree that some meat eaters get defensive. It's a bit like drinkers, isn't it, as well? You know, people offering you an alcoholic drink and you say, I don't want one, thanks. And they say, why not? What's up? I just want a soft drink at the moment. I agree that some meat eaters get defensive when vegetarianism is discussed and assume that we are trying to convert them. I really don't care what other people eat. What's your view on that then, Christy?
Yeah, I mean, it can be a challenge. I was just telling Kathy that this is the first time in 20 years I've actually had non-vegan friends. Like, just like if you like a particular sport, or you like you gravitate towards friend groups with people that have the same interests as you. But yes. Here, it's like all my friends in Lisbon are vegan, but here my friends are not. And it's been challenging navigating that whole social system and interaction. But yes. Thankfully, I have really lovely, nice friends that enjoy the restaurants that I can eat at too. So it hasn't been a problem.
And are not taking your lifestyle choices personally. Very good. The pleasure from food is about taste, texture, and smell. You can get all three from vegan cuisine. So let's get excited then about vegan cuisine and eating out. People who are new to the country will want to be immersing themselves in Portuguese culture and might want to go to a vegan restaurant. You said Lisbon and Porto are great places to go. How do you find out about the great vegan restaurants to go to in this country?
There's an app called Happy Cow, and it's the best. I've used it all over the world. You open up the app, and where you're at, it will tell you the closest vegan, vegetarian, and vegan-friendly places. So Happy Cow is your answer. You'll never be, you can go anywhere and you will find options. So that's been around for probably 20 years. And that has helped me so much in my travels.
Happy Cow is the recommendation for that. Being vegan in Caldas is easy with that incredible fruit and veg market. That's a good habit to get into, isn't it, when you're new to Portugal? Go to the market. People might be indoctrinated or conditioned to going to the supermarket. If going to the Portuguese markets, the mercados, and you're so blessed, aren't they? You've just had the Festa de Frutas, haven't you, in Caldas, of course. But every day, that beautiful square is awash with fresh produce, isn't it? So I guess that must be nice for you as well, Christy, over there. We had a vegetarian guest last week. She loved the big Chinese buffet places here in Portugal. So there's another possible option there. This isn't specifically vegan. Do you pop into the Chinese buffet? Would you recommend that?
On occasion, if you had,
again.
Yeah, like it can be a little bit oily for me, but it is delicious every once in a while.
Okay, this isn't specifically vegan, but has anybody here nailed a reliable source of kale? Where can Sarah get her kale from, Christy?
Unfortunately, what I have found in Europe, especially the supermarkets of Britain and the US are seasonless. You can get everything all the time. Yes. But in Europe, the markets tend to be more seasonal. And kale, I've literally never found except in the fall. Like, it's so rare. It's the one thing missing from my diet that I used to eat almost every day. Yeah,
okay. But the strange thing with that is that it's very easy to grow here. So anybody who wants to become a vegan and vegetarian and wants to grow more food, kale is grown very easily. We've got it in our garden, it seems, all year round here, and you can make lovely kale chips straight from the garden. Pam's been surprised by the number of Portuguese vegetarians she's met since living here. So again, I think that's probably to do with prejudices, isn't it? And thinking a country might be a certain kind of way, and then you actually connect with people and you find that something else is the case. Look at this.
It's very cool. It's very cool because I want to mention an organization that's doing amazing work here in Portugal. Desafio is a Portuguese vegan advocacy organization that has done amazing work. You may have heard of Veganuary, which is the British January month of vegan that gives resources. Well, Desafio was able to get a grant to offer a similar program for the Portuguese, and 40,000 people, I think, signed up the first year that they did it. Something crazy. Maybe that's a bigger number, but they also go into schools and do cooking workshops in schools to teach younger kids how to eat healthier. They also did a huge advocacy thing with all of the supermarkets to get more vegan products in the supermarkets. So they're now also trying to get more vegan options in restaurants. But I think it was maybe 3 years ago, they passed a law where government buildings and hospitals had to have vegetarian options. So slowly but surely, it's changing here. And even some of the traditional Portuguese dishes are vegan. So it's not unusual for people to eat vegetarian and vegan foods. And you don't need to go vegan. Like, if you really don't want to go vegan, you don't have to go vegan. Like, any steps you make towards eating less animal foods is better. And somebody's bringing up in the comments about small farms or whatever. Unfortunately, the general population is not eating animal foods from small farms. When we look at the U.S., which is one of the bigger consumers of animal foods, maybe 1% of food is from those small farms. Those small farms aren't the problem. It's factory farming that's the problem. It's factory farming that's causing so much destruction to the planet. It's leveling out entire forests in Brazil to grow soy and corn to feed animals. When you cut out the middleman, the animal, and just eat the plants, then we have a more sustainable system for the world. So that was my soapbox.
No, fair enough. And thank you for mentioning desafío as well. We may need an actual spelling of that if you've got that to hand. But we did report on that, the fact that they'd managed to ensure that there was a choice on menus in, I think it was in schools, hospitals and prisons, actually, to make sure that there were at least a vegetarian, but their aim was to have a vegan meal in each of those institutions as well, which is great. So thank you for mentioning that. This is very niche, isn't it? We found an excellent vegan Peruvian restaurant in Seville. That's quite a long way to go, but it sounds like fun, doesn't it? And Lisbon, where T-Duck lives, of course, has an amazing selection of vegan restaurants. Yes, I've been to one or two of those, and we've been together to Botolini as well. I've been to there on a number of occasions, which I think is the one that's being mentioned here. I only know of one vegan restaurant in Caldas. Are there any others or good places to eat that are vegan friendly in Caldas?
Yeah. I basically, no matter where I go in the world, I stick with ethnic food. So Indian food, there's a number of delicious Indian food places, Asian food, sushi, because there's veggie sushi, Japanese food. Like I pretty much stick with vegetarian Asian food and ethnic food, but Local Cafe is my favorite coffee shop. They're one of the only coffee shops that has plant milks, which I think is crazy. And it's 2022, you know, like it's crazy that so many places don't have plant milks.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting. The phrasing itself, this is a good point. The phrasing itself is limited mostly to restaurants. There's a lot of vegan food available in Portugal. Yeah, there is a lot of food that isn't animal. I suppose the phrasing, the vocabulary has in itself some of the challenges. So it's a matter of breaking those down, I think, in our own minds. I find some restaurants only offer a vegan choice. Only offer a vegan choice rather than the vegetarian. So for a vegetarian who likes cheese, it's a bit of a downer. Because you can't please all the people all of the time there, Pam. But what an interesting development, offering a vegan instead of a vegetarian option in some Portuguese restaurants. That may be Alcobaça. It's challenging to find vegan restaurants in Portugal. Lots of vegan food, but I'd have to prepare it myself. We're finding that's not necessarily the case. Botolini, T-Duck, another thumbs up for Botolini. Who has to leave early today, by the way, heading over this way later on today. Appetizers, meat, seafood, vegetarian, vegan, desserts, all sections on the menu. Why not? I'm not sure what is being said there. Slug, explain yourself. Great show today. I'll watch the rest on replay. I knew this would be of interest to you, T-Duck. Oh, this is the minimalist, isn't it? Even with my food groups, can you suggest a minimalist vegan food menu? Keep it simple, right? And keep it within the base. Could you say that again one more time, Christy? What the components were of your minimalist?
I imagine my plate in 4 sections. Half is vegetables. You always want tons of vegetables.
Yeah.
Plant protein and carbohydrates.
Okay, there you go. Good point. I don't know who made this, and I didn't see it myself, but most alcohol is vegan, which brings us back to your newfound appreciation of Portuguese wine. Is it the crispy Vinho Verde that goes very nicely with vegan food? What are your recommendations for Portuguese wine?
I literally tried a new wine the first year of the pandemic every week, and out of 52, out of 52, I only didn't like 1 or 2. So you really can't go wrong. In the winter, fall, I stick with reds, and then spring, summer, I switch to sangria and Vinho Verde and white. Yeah.
I am with you all the way on that. It's red for the winter and the autumn when things are cooling down. And yes, it's a nice warmer, isn't it? A winter warmer. Excellent. And we had a very similar experience with the wine club, actually. We tried about 50 wines and only disliked 1 or 2 of them. That's a pretty good hit rate, isn't it? Kathy, our mutual friend Kathy is here. Look, I'm listening while studying cleaning. I'm listening while studying. Cleaning the bacon grease from the hob in our new rental. Ew, that's not a nice thing if you're a vegan or vegetarian moving into a place. A great show with good information on the continuum of health. Thank you very much. Morning, everybody from João F. Allow me to spend the next 40 or so minutes in your joyful company. Absolutely right. And it's a bon dia from the UK, from our friend, Portuguese friend, Manuel over there. Christy, maybe mention the climate effects of veganism. I think you did in a roundabout way. Did you want to say more about that?
I mean, I think it used to be the first or second and maybe the third contributor to climate change because of the waste that the factory farming produces, the methane that goes into the ozone layer, destruction of the oceans, yes, overfishing. Yeah, it's pretty insane when you look at the numbers. I can suggest a few documentaries if you're interested.
Yeah.
Seaspiracy is a newer one that talks specifically about what's happening in the oceans. Of course, my mind just went blank.
There was Cowspiracy before that, wasn't there?
Cowspiracy, exactly. So those two are my favorite, but I can leave some more in the chat later. Please.
And My Friend the Octopus did quite a lot as well, didn't it, to put people off eating octopus on Netflix, I think, as well, at least for a little while. And this I suspect you'll be useful. We're never far away from, we're not meant to be vegans. I don't know if you want to say anything about that. Perhaps it's a confrontation for another time. We're here this morning mainly to talk about what you can do if you want to become vegan or vegetarian, rather than have the old debate. I mean, are you just sick of that?
Yeah, and there's plenty of other people on YouTube and many other vegan advocates that explain this way better than I do.
Yes.
So I'll put some links in the chat later.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
People who would like to, but I don't have these conversations with people who have their mindset, who are just trying to, ruffle my feathers. Like, my lifestyle is my lifestyle, and it's obviously served me very well. Yeah. And if people want to learn more about it, I'm happy to share, but I'm not here to have a debate about my lifestyle,
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, that tends to be how we roll here anyway, Christy. So you're in good company. It's not about persuading. It's about informing.
And inspiration,
inspiration, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. I was talking about seed oils added into plant milk, so a little bit of insidious processing there. Can we get some decent plant milks, do you think, here in Portugal, and not one that's been? I mean, they are a victim, aren't they, of the commercialization of plant milks? Of course, make it cheaper, make more of it, and in that volume, in that mass production, I think something gets lost. There are some decent plant milks here, are there?
Definitely. I haven't looked at every single brand and every single ingredient, but they're definitely, you can compare. And of course, you can just make your own if you really want. You can make your own almond milk.
Yes.
Very easy to make oat milk. So if you want, you can just make it yourself if you're worried. And yeah.
That's right. Who doesn't like to soak their nuts first thing in the morning? Yes. To survive as a vegan, if foraging, okay, interesting point again, Pete. Foraging, we could bring into the conversation, couldn't we? And the amazing, be careful, foraging for mushrooms especially. But yes, Portugal, a great backdrop for foraging. And good to know, Pete, you make your own sausages out there and pesticide free. So making that a cleaner process, which is great. Caffeine, my friend, caffeine. I think that's just James speaking out loud. To his caffeine there. Best cuisines then for vegans. Moaz, I think, agreeing with you. Chinese, Indian, Thai, and Middle Easterner. Would you agree with that? And would you like to add anything?
Yeah, those are all great. Japanese, you have to be a little cautious because sometimes they put fish broth in the miso soup. So, you have to be a little bit cautious. But I love veggie sushi. I love it. But yeah, Middle Eastern, Kathy, I think, brought up Egyptian, there's a restaurant, Cairo. Have you been there?
I have. We're great friends with Cairo. Yeah, and they're very happily lean into the world we're talking about, don't they?
Yeah, we have such good options here. I love Coco's Bar and Faj.
Yes, that as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Shout out to Phil and Maria who love that place. Yeah. And these are the places, aren't they, I think, where what you were saying before, basically, about talking to the chef, talking to the owner. Could you do anything along these lines? This is what I would like. And then that can be the most beautiful. I mean, that can be a disappointing moment where the restaurateur might say, sorry, no. But on the other hand, they might say, yeah, this sounds great. And I think at Cairo, they're exactly like that, aren't they? These are the things that you might like to eat here. And I might even knock something up with this community in mind as well.
It's really funny because I've talked to a number of vegan friendly people that aren't vegan, but they constantly want to tell me stories about how they went to this luncheon and they went ahead and got the vegetarian option because they wanted to eat a little healthier that day. And then everybody and the whole table was staring. Oh, what do you got? Oh, yours looks nice.
I got to say, Christy, some of the most exciting and interesting meals I've had are vegan, because it's almost like the vegan community does have to try harder. I know it shouldn't have to, but you know, I went to Terra Terra, I think it was in Brighton in the UK, which I think is a legendary vegan restaurant, and they really had thought about it and really made an effort to make something extraordinary, and they achieved it. And you don't necessarily say that about your run-of-the-mill everyday restaurant. Sometimes people don't have to try too hard, and I think that causes maybe a little bit of a lackluster presentation on the plate. Vitamin B12 then, if you want it, potassium and magnesium, so important to your body. Cheers, Nigel, for that input. Potassium and magnesium, yeah, your vits and minerals, as Christy was saying, you can get that monitored and screened and find out what you're deficient in and then make the necessary adjustments. And Stephen, did you say Christy has a website? I did indeed. Could you tell us more about it, please, Christy? What will people find there, and what is your website address?
So I haven't actually updated my blog in many years.
You as well, right?
So, you know, excuse the lack of content in the last couple of years, but there's over 10 years of content on there.
Yes.
From fitness to recipes to travel blogs that probably need to be updated because a lot of places closed in the pandemic, unfortunately. But yeah, if you check out my website, and feel free to, if you want to see what a vegan eats all the time, you can follow me on Instagram. I post in my stories what I'm eating, what I'm making, and all the different things that you can find here in Portugal.
There you go. And the website address, then, let me put that onto the screen, blissfulandfit.com. Blissfulandfit.com. Okay, thank you very much for that. Farm shops. We mentioned the market. Do go to the market. Use your local market. Very important, I think, with the times that we're moving into economically and socially and health-wise. Use your local market. But Nigel Henry was asking about farm shops. I know in our area, Christy, we have the COPA, COPA shops, don't we? That are connected with the, I think essentially with the apple and pear harvesting and production in this part of the world. But that's a lovely little farm shop chain, COPA, COPA. I don't know if you found that, Christy. Absolutely fantastic little chain of shops. And they have Whole Foods as well as all the apples and pears and fresh fruit and veg. So look out for that, Nigel. I don't know if you've got them down as far as the Algarve. Anyway, yet you say, so hopefully you will find your farm shop experience down there. What would you say about that? For Americans coming over, it's not quite the same, is it? The organic farmers market. We don't do it quite the same way here in Portugal, do we?
Yeah, that's the one thing that I've probably changed in my lifestyle. Prior to moving here, I pretty much had 99% of my food and diet was certified or organic. And I find here that it is less accessible, or it's just much more expensive. In the US, like the organic would only be like 10 cents or 20 cents more than the non-organic. So of course you get the organic, but here it can be quite a big difference in price. So I haven't really made it that big of a deal. Like I figure I ate organic for 40 years. I'll be okay if I have some non-organic stuff now. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Understood. And the distinction, I think, can be prohibitive for some producers, can't it? To actually label their stuff up officially as bio.
It's very expensive for them. Yeah.
Makes it difficult. Okay, another shout out for Cairo then in Caldash. Several vegan dishes, and Catherine, the owner, is very accommodating. Well, she is fantastic, and you can see some fantastic dancing there on a Friday night as well. I love Pam joining the show this morning. I love how people ask, what do you eat, in shock and horror when they discover I'm vegetarian. Maybe they eat only meat. It's a really interesting way of looking at that. After the Warming is a great documentary that includes the impact of beef on the environment. Free on YouTube. Thank you for that resource there, James. And the vast majority of Indian food is vegan. Why not move somewhere it is accepted and you don't have to announce it every 5 years? Oh, come on, Pete, cheer up. You can never have a conversation with fanatics of any kind, whether they are meat eaters. Yes, that's the nail on the head there, isn't it? We are not talking about fanaticism this morning or taking a fanatical approach. We're talking about taking an inspirational and joyful approach. And I think you can see that on Christy's face, my guest this morning. You're a good advert for your lifestyle, Christy, for sure. Had to disappear a while, missed a bit, saw my comment on screen, and we'll catch up. I watched Game Changers. There you go. Stilly, another resource possibly comfortably there. I still eat with a good balance, more on the veggie side. Thanks so much, Christy, for you this morning. Fondle the like button as we go into the last few minutes. I can't believe it. We've been talking for nearly an hour here, Christy. Thank you so much for being with me this morning. Local co-op shops often sell organic products like the Granja da Sister in Alcobaça. Yeah, Copper, like to shout out for Copper as well. Beautiful chain of shops. Final word then from you, Christy, if I may ask you. Somebody setting out on this, they've heard what we've been talking about this morning. They might have been quite set in their ways of thinking, you know what, this sounds like quite good fun. I might give it a go. Where to start?
Well, I want to encourage people to just, give it a try. It doesn't need to be a full overhaul. You don't have to go through your kitchen and pantries and throw everything out. Like, just, we want you to add things in, don't focus on taking things away, add things in. And also my hope is to start doing cooking classes again on the Silver Coast, because I haven't been because of the pandemic. But now I would love to start doing cooking classes, and I'm actually looking for spaces to host me to do those cooking classes.
Okay.
So if you know of anything, or you know of a place, or you want to actually host a party in your home or come to my home, I would love to share my food with you. So yeah,
that is a lovely idea. And did a little bird tell me that you might one day open up a center? Perhaps in Central Portugal.
Yes.
With this in mind. Tell us a little bit more about that before you go then.
So I've done yoga retreats and wellness retreats all over the world. And my goal is to have my own wellness retreat here in Portugal someday, but I need a partner to help. So if you're interested in that, let me know.
All right, that's fantastic. So go to Blissful and Fit, and I'll put that into the comments one more time, blissfulandfit.com. Thank you so much for being here today. I think we've perhaps presented a view of the subject that may well be touching, moving, and inspiring for people, for them to go out and give it a go, whether that be at restaurants or at home. So thank you again, Christy, for being here. I hope you'll come back another time.
Yes, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Just let me know.
Okay, that's super. There you go. There's the link to the website. That's onto the screen now. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great day. And I imagine we'll bump into each other sometime here on the Silver Coast. If you're in San Martino de Porto, come and say hello. All right. Ciao, ciao, Christy. Thank you for being here. There you go. Oh, sorry, I cut her off just as you're saying goodbye there. I do apologize. Blissfulandfit.com for Christy Morgan there. And yes, this is interesting, isn't it? And this is the way round it seems to be. I bet vegetarians get tired of explaining their choices to others. It's like if you don't drink alcohol, isn't it? Or if you're vegetarian or vegan, why? It's like, you don't have to answer. I don't want to talk about it right now. I'm just too busy enjoying this vibrant, delightful salad right here with a cheeky vinho verde on the side. One of my best friends opened House of Wonders, a gorgeous fresh veggies restaurant with many vegan options in Cascais 11 years ago. I'm not vegetarian, but I eat there daily. So delicious. That's a nice shout out for an establishment then, House of Wonders. And there we're touching on the inspiration, aren't we? We're not talking about gloom and doom or what you should and shouldn't be doing, but House of Wonders sounds like an attractive proposition when wanting to eat out. Ciao, y'all, from Sarah. The son's namorada is graciously offering to help with the language. You've got to take up an offer like that. Marvelous. Thank you, everybody, for your comments this morning. I'm going to just go back and conclude on some of the on the idea I was putting to you before. I did say, of course, that we were founded within the pandemic, and we were an information resource during that time to help people understand what was going on as an English-speaking resource. And our community was born of that. We might be going into something else, sociological and a trajectory for society globally and nationally, cost of living crisis, whatever you want to call it. What do you want to call it? But something's afoot, isn't it? Rising cost of energy and resources. It's going to impact on the lifestyle of everybody, and of course within this environment, the foreigners, the immigrants, the expats coming in, we might need each other again in the way that we lent on each other and helped each other out during the pandemic. How might we do that in the coming times? And I mentioned a summer of discontent. This is how it's being reported, and like I said before, not gloom and doom, but also not sticking our heads in the sand. Need to talk about what's going on. Summer of discontent in Portugal, then being written about in the Portugal news, striking planned. Understandably, people want pay rises at the moment as they fear the worst consequences of rising energy prices, scarcity of resources, and the subsequent price increases that will bring around. and putting it on the agenda, such that we have a space in which to look after each other and keep each other informed about what might be going on and how that might impact that's my invitation to you, how this might impact the expat, immigrant and foreigner community, and how we might be a resource to each other in what might become some challenging times. Stephen, then finally, I don't think I've met a vegan that didn't want to talk about it. It's so interesting, this. I get the joke. I do get the joke. And isn't that everybody as well, though? We've all got our thing that we want to talk about, that we're excited about, don't we? And you're also at a slight disadvantage if you're doing something that's not entirely mainstream. So it would sound a little bit extra clunky if you're talking about something that's just like not the normal run of things, when you're thinking or living outside the box. Doreen, that looks good, says Pam. I might pay a visit to the House of Wonders. Fantastic. And James, it's a much bigger topic of conversation that can be achieved here in the comments on this show. Occasionally we get to that point, well said, James, where the context and confinement or constriction of chat does not allow the rich unpacking of an idea or a discussion, a rich and respectful discussion. And then you know what happens in chat boxes, it tends to come down to point scoring, doesn't it, as we sometimes see. So perhaps we will have a special, we'll open it up and we'll have some respectful and thoughtful and legal conversation about this as a bigger issue. But a fascinating topic, beautifully treated by Christy Morgan from Blissful and Fit this morning. Thank you so much for being here and talking about it. And I think that's right. I think people who are different in any way may well get tired of explaining their choices to others. An interesting point to end on today. Thank you for being here. We'll be back here tomorrow on Move to Portugal Thursday. Take care. Bye for now and have a good one. Ciao, ciao. Bye for now. Adios.
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. A little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP. Hey, Gumpers.